Despite all evidence to the contrary, we all know that Donald Trump considers himself a genius of a businessman, wheeling and dealing with other businesses and what I think is fair to say is now the art of the steal. Deal? No, because he's never been able to do that. There's literally no reason I said steal, though. Just, I mean, the words rhyme, maybe? That must be it. Because this is a guy who filed for bankruptcy 6 times in the 90s, who has lost every penny ever thrown at him by my grandfather and the banks. So, it's pretty difficult to come away from all of that information thinking that he's good at what he pretends to be good at. In the lead up to the 2024 election, and definitely more so since then, we've seen businesses unaccountably uh, hitch their wagons to Donald with their endorsements and perhaps even worse, their capitulations. Now it seems like some of these businesses, at least, are finally starting to wake up to what's actually happening. Farmers have long been some of Donald's strongest supporters, but they're turning their backs on him and quickly in the wake of his massive tariff blunders. Watch this.
Agriculture, there's about 85% of what happens on my farm that is completely out of my control.
Yeah.
So I have to do the very best I can at managing that 15% of inputs and cost and labor and marketing and signing the best contract and doing the best job that I can, and leave the other 85% up to the good Lord. And that's all we can do, whether it's weather or disease or a hailstorm or a pandemic or administration. And we just weather the storm.
It's a different reality in red state America. All the people that I talked to at that table had voted for Trump at least once, if not multiple times. And in part because of that, but I think largely because of the attitude you have to take when you are a farmer. You are more sanguine. You are more accepting of external chaos. But I kept saying, this isn't hurricanes. This isn't weather. This isn't an act of God. This is Donald Trump making very clear decisions that put you in financial peril. And it's not just that they sell their, goods to China. It's that they need farm equipment. They need lots of supplies that are manufactured in China. And they've already spent that money, Chris. The way it goes with the commodities trade is you've already put the money in the ground for the seed, the fertilizer, the equipment, the labor. They just got to hope come harvest time that they can sell it at a decent price and don't lose money. And Trump has thrown all of that up in the air.
I feel like in the last trade war, we kind of went through the short-term pain, and I'm wondering where the gain was, maybe. We kind of came out of it in a little bit of turmoil.
So essentially, Donald did exactly what he promised to do during his campaign, which, by the way, is unusual for him. He blew up our economy. While many did not expect this to be a reality, farmers in particular are facing hard truths about the consequences of their vote. The loss of China as an export market will deal a hard economic blow to agricultural workers in many red states, including with voters who supported Donald during the last presidential election and very possibly in 2020 and 2016 as well. One industry particularly worried about these tariffs is the soybean industry. Caleb Ragland, a Kentucky farmer who is president of the American Soybean Association, told the New York Times, quote, "If this lasts long term, we're going to have a significant number of farmers going out of business. We still bear scars from the last trade war," unquote. Well, again, sorry to keep saying this. This is the finding out part of fucking around, because it is not as if Donald Trump and the fascist Republican Party did not tell us exactly what they intended to do. Well, across the board, but particularly with regard to our economy. Donald himself was very outspoken about his belief that we needed to impose significant tariffs on other countries, including China. So nobody should be surprised by any of this. I mean, we should all be horrified, but nobody should be surprised. Farmers are one of many groups regretting their decision to vote for Donald. Leading figures in the U.S. shale industry are calling for a stop to new drilling activities. Shale boss Brian Sheffield was a leader in this effort and told Bloomberg that the situation right now is a bloodbath and that, quote, "the industry needs to cut immediately and hunker down to let the tariff war play out," unquote. This comes after shale drillers contributed significantly to Donald's election campaign and were responsible for catapulting the country to a top crude oil producer in the world. They now feel that Donald has handed them a massive betrayal in the wake of tariffs. And he has, but part of it is because he doesn't understand what he's doing. So the fact that all of these industries are begging him to reconsider, well, that's just going to fall on deaf ears because nobody can tell him that he's wrong because he's never wrong. So he's just going to keep doubling and quadrupling down, hurting the people most who most supported him. A small business and three-time voter for Donald in North Carolina is learning the hard way exactly how badly Donald is screwing on American businesses.
At Secret Garden Bees, a honey farm in Linden, North Carolina, farmer Jim Hartman has one eye on his bees and the other on his bank account.
People who already couldn't afford fresh vegetables, who couldn't already afford to put good food on their plate, are the ones that are really going to be hurt by this.
Did you ever think when you voted for President Trump that things were going to cost you more and you were going to lose money?
I never thought I was going to lose this much money, this fast.
Jim is a Republican who voted for Donald Trump 3 times.
How do you feel about your vote for Donald Trump now?
Well, I feel like perhaps I should have considered some other options.
Yeah, so you think maybe sort of kind of you should have considered other options? I mean, it's a little waffly, but for somebody who voted for Donald, I guess that's progress. And again, I know this doesn't have anything to do with the subject matter at hand, but I think it's worth flagging. The idea that even before all of this tariff insanity, there are Americans who could not afford fresh fruit and vegetables is grotesque. And we should be ashamed of that and try to do everything in our power to make sure that that no longer continues to be the case. Anyway, smaller businesses and workers will continue to suffer. Donald's auto tariffs are significantly reducing profit sharing checks for United Auto Workers members. Estimates from the Anderson Economic Group suggest that workers at General Motors, Ford, and Stellantis could receive between 1,000 and over 5,000 less in 2025. This decline stems from decreased vehicle sales and increased manufacturing costs linked to the tariffs, potentially lowering automakers' adjusted earnings by more than $5 billion. Okay. This is, again, the problem with where we are. American workers were lied to. Now, we can feel how we feel about people who voted for Donald Trump, who focused on one thing, who focused on the only thing that benefited them and ignored all of the other red flags, ignored all of the other policies that were going to harm people, not them. All right. But we have to remember that these people have been lied to for over a decade now. And then sometimes longer than that. Like anybody who watched The Apprentice and just sort of bought into the myth that Donald wasn't a complete and utter idiot started from a completely different perspective from those of us who've been paying attention and not being handed our quote unquote news in a silo that actually doesn't tell them the truth about anything. So during the election, they were told that all of these policies were going to help the American worker. We're going to build the middle class. We're going to increase real wages and create more manufacturing opportunities. Not only is none of that happening, the things they thought they could count on are being undermined at alarming rates and to alarming degrees. So anybody who is getting to the point where they're questioning their vote for Donald Trump and they are questioning the road, the very dark and dangerous road he is taking this country down, is somebody we should applaud, quite frankly. And hopefully, going hand in hand with that, they will also start to recognize just what they were willing to put up with when they believed his lies about how he was going to help them. Now, of course, all of this goes beyond tariffs. Outdoor retailer REI has withdrawn its endorsement of the Trump regime. I can't even believe they endorsed him in the first place. I actually like that company. Oh well. And also Doug Burgum for Secretary of the Interior, acknowledging the move was a mistake. You think so? Wow. I have to be honest with you. I'm shocked at REI. Brigham's policies favoring fossil fuel development and questioning public land protections conflicted with the REI's commitment to conservation, which is why I'm shocked. Like, I have people been living under rocks. That's the only thing I can. I mean, REI is a big corporation. It must have been a very big rock. But my God, like you actually thought that Donald Trump was going to be in alignment with your mission? The company now urges Secretary Burgum to rescind orders that could open national monuments to energy extraction, reaffirming its dedication to safeguarding public lands. Yeah, good luck with that. You literally voted to throw the keys over to the people who want to destroy the planet, and now you're surprised. Well done, REI. Well done. I mean, again, better late than never, I guess. But it also would have been better before the election, so we wouldn't have had to get to this point. But still, welcome aboard. Before we go further, please hit like, share this video, and subscribe if you haven't already. We are pushing to get to 400,000 subscribers, and every little bit helps. As independent media, your support helps us reach more people and keeps this thing going. All right, it is not just businesses that are regretting voting for Donald and his disastrous tariffs. Everyday Americans are questioning their choices. While we've long known that Donald's policies are bad for Americans, or at least we should have, even his supporters are starting to realize that too. Longtime supporters are seeing their retirement accounts tank in the wake of the stock market crash. Between investments and retirement accounts, many people who are within 5 to 10 years of retiring are freaking out. And they never thought their vote for Donald would lead to such personal turmoil and maybe even affect their ability to retire on time. Denise, a 58-year-old lifelong Republican and three-time supporter of Donald, expressed her regret to the Huffington Post in the wake of government turmoil. She went as far as to tell HuffPost, quote, "I've been pretty bitter ever since. I will be moving towards becoming an independent from now on," unquote. Many supporters are telling the same tale. They did not vote for these tariffs. But the reality is they did vote for these tariffs. Donald has long threatened to blow up our economy and impose massive tariffs despite clear doubt from his supporters that this would come to pass. Why doubt him? You believe him. You actually believe in him. And you were told by Fox and OAN and Newsmax exactly what he was going to do. I mean, for God's sakes, they wrote a whole fascist manifesto called Project 2025 laying all of this out. So we all saw this coming. But now the real life consequences are threatening his supporters, businesses, and everyday Americans alike. And it doesn't feel very good, does it? And I guess the great irony, and I'm not engaging in Schadenfreude here. I'm really not. But the irony is that so many of Donald's disastrous policy decisions are going to impact the people who voted for him in red states more than the rest of us. And red states are so-called welfare states, which means that they take more money out of the federal government than they put in, unlike blue states like New York and California that are very, very rich and give more to the federal government than they take out. So states like California and New York will be able to withstand the economic fallout, whereas red states will not be able to. Consumer sentiment plunged 11% this month to 50.8, the University of Michigan said in its latest survey. This marks the second lowest reading on record going back to 1952. In fact, this month's report of consumers' faith in the economy was lower than anything seen since the Great Recession. Joanne Su, the survey's director, said in a release, quote, "This decline was, like the last months, pervasive and unanimous across age, income, education, geographic region, and political affiliation. Sentiment has now lost more than 30% since December 2024, amid growing worries about trade war developments that have oscillated over the course of the year," unquote. And I am sorry to say this, but it is only going to get worse. Yesterday, 2 days ago, when the market rebounded because Donald changed course because he doesn't know what he's doing and he's a loser, and announced a 90-day pause on his tariffs, which he had said right before then he was never going to do. It didn't change anything. It just put a pause on the chaos. Markets have not responded well since then. Prices are going to continue to go up Inflation is going to continue to go up. There will continue to be chaos and uncertainty for American consumers. Why? Because the person 74 million people decided to put in charge of this country understands absolutely nothing except for chaos and uncertainty. So here we are. Please take a second and like and share this video. Be awesome if you could subscribe to the channel. If you're listening to us in podcast form, please follow us and give the show a 5-star rating because it really does help other people find our content. Thanks.